Welcome to Satsang. So beautiful to be together with all of you. Starting with a question that's come in advance from our online audience and family. And then we'll open it up to any questions that anyone here has. And the kids should know children always get first priority. So if you have a question, raise your hand fast and you always get to go first. So. I've recently been reminded about how short and precious life really is, and how quickly it can be taken from us. What should we do to remind ourselves that every moment in our life counts? And what actions should we take to cherish our lives to the fullest? This is asked by Aggie. It's sad, but it's really universally true that the time we seem most grateful for life, most aware of the preciousness of life, is when we've just lost a loved one, or when we are under threat of losing our lives. We get a scary diagnosis, or we have kind of a life or death experience. Someone we know dies. Sadly, it tends to take one of these types of experiences to make us really appreciate how precious life is. But this is what the sages and the saints have been telling us all the time. Remember death. Think about death. Until you live with an awareness of death, you can't really live. If we're living by pushing the idea of death aside, we're not really living. And when we live with that awareness of death every minute, every moment, then what you find is that we tend not to get so worked up about silly little things. We tend to just let things go. Jani do koi baat nahi, chodo usko. Because we realize it's not worth it. One of the greatest teaching techniques is every time you get upset about something, anything, you're angry, you're frustrated, you're jealous, you're resentful, whatever you may be feeling, ask yourself a really simple question. If you only had 24 hours a day, if you only had 24 hours left to live, one day left to live, would you still be upset about this? Simple question. This thing you're really angry about. If you were in your last day on earth, would you be angry about this? And if the answer is no, then let it go. Let it go. The stuff that we would still be angry about, like world hunger, like human rights abuses, like climate change, that's the kind of thing that even if it were our last day on earth, we would still not want there to be world hunger. Nobody would say, "Are Jani do koi baat nahi. I'm dying, let them all die also." We don't think like that. So the things that would still matter to you, if you knew it was your last day, those are the only things you should let yourself get worked up about. Doesn't mean we don't pay attention, doesn't mean we don't try to change things. We do. We notice things. We even notice if things are not right, we work to change them for however many days we have left. But we recognize that it's not worth losing a precious minute of our life in anger. Because if you are angry, that moment is gone. You have lost the moment. If you're feeling jealous, or you're resentful, or you're plotting revenge against someone, or you're feeling horrible about how somebody treated you, that moment is gone. You've lost it. And that moment was a gift. But you've essentially thrown it away. So really ask yourself, as we live with this awareness of death, every minute, is this what I would be doing if I only had 24 hours left? Now, some of it we have to do that we wouldn't do that day. Like if it was your last day on earth, you wouldn't work. Because you'd know, to pesa chahiye nahi. I don't need any money, I'm dying. So you probably wouldn't go to work. You probably wouldn't clean the house because you'd say, who cares? So there's some things we have to do anyway, with the assumption that we're living more than 24 hours. But that which steals our mental peace, what steals our mind, let it go. Let it go. And that's why that awareness of death is so important. It's why if you talk to people who have survived horrible illnesses or accidents, traumas, they all say, I'm so glad it happened. People get these horrible diagnoses of cancer. They go through awful chemotherapy, awful radiation. They really suffer. By God's grace, they don't die, they stay alive. But what every one of them I know has said is, I'm so glad I had that. Because what it has done is it's made me so much more appreciative of life. It's made me so much more tolerant and accepting of people. Because when you're in the middle of chemotherapy, the last thing you're thinking about is who's talking nonsense about you, or who has more money than you do, or little stupid things. You're not thinking about it. You're thinking about how to stay alive. So hopefully we're able to have this awareness without getting a terminal diagnosis, without being in a near fatal accident. Bring it into your awareness every day. Every day. You know, in the Arati, sometimes if you look across Ganga and down river, sometimes you can still see a cremation fire burning, because the cremation ground is just down past Janki Bridge. So it's not that far away. And in the night when it's dark, you can sometimes still see a fire burning. And I always try to pay attention to that, to really meditate on it, because you know, one of these days, if not today, tomorrow, if not tomorrow, the day after, it's going to be me standing there, mourning the burning of a loved one. And then one other day, that we never know when it's going to be me burning. And as you meditate, as you pray, as we celebrate in the Arati, to just also simultaneously hold that awareness of the fact that that funeral pyre is where we're all going. First as mourners, and then as the one who dies. And it just changes your experience of the present moment so drastically. It's a very powerful meditation. It's why Pujya Swamiji, when he was young, doing his sadhana, and so many other saints who go through really intense sadhana and tapas, actually have to meditate in the cremation grounds for many nights in a row. The gurus will make them sit there while the bodies are burning and just meditate for hours and hours or all night long. You think, why? For this exact reason. To very clearly realize you are not the body. Look what happens to it. You watch body after body after body after body after body after body go up in flames. And it's very hard to then identify as yours. You realize, oh yeah, The only difference is I still have prana in mine. Body is the same. It's just mera mein pran bhi hai. For now. So to the extent that you can keep death in your awareness, not in a tragic or morbid way, but it's actually that which makes life so much more beautiful. Because we realize the preciousness of it. Yeah, great question. Thank you. Any questions anyone here has? Yes. Just you can come to the microphone and tell us your name and where you're from and then ask the question.
Namaste everyone. I am Rudra Khandelwal from Indore, Madhya Pradesh.
Wonderful.
And I am a student. I am 18 years old, right? And
भैया आप बैठ जाओ. वो बार-बार बता रही है आपको. बैठ जाओ. धन्यवाद.
And I've lived my life with my parents. And till now, many major decisions in my life, I have had many people surrounding me, helped me. But as I grow older, I have this doubt in mind about making decisions between the right and wrong. And how I can decide as a person, knowing very little, what decisions to make and what happens if I make a wrong decision. And right now, I'll just give you a very tiny example.
Sure.
I just had my entrance examination for my college, and I need to decide what I want to do further in life. So this is a decision that is mine to make completely. My parents are very open, and they just want me to do what's best for me. But even in this small decision, I get very confused and very hesitant. So for further decisions to be made in life, what can be a way I can decide what to do, what not to do?
Great question. First of all, deciding what you want to do in your life is not a small decision. It's a very big decision. A lot of times decisions paralyze us. And we don't know what decision to make and we end up freezing. Here's the way to do it. First of all, realize there's not actually any wrong decision. What there are is wrong or right ways of living in any decision you make. A decision is just a decision. It creates a circumstance. Whatever decision you make, it will give you a different circumstance. So you decide, I want to live in Paris. Okay, you have the circumstances of Paris. The geography of Paris, the language of Paris, the food of Paris, the people of Paris. You decide that you want to live in Delhi. You have a different circumstance, different situation, different landscape, different language, different people. Every decision you make puts you into a different set of circumstances. Whether it's the job you want to do, whether it's who you want to marry, whether it's where you go to university, whether it's even which restaurant you want to go to for dinner tonight, what TV show you want to watch. Every one of these things puts you in a different position, a different environment, a different situation. For a short time or for a long time. The main question is not actually which decision. We'll come to how to make decisions in a moment, but the main question is, once I've made a decision, how can I make that the right decision? Because sometimes we make a decision that otherwise doesn't make any sense. I'll give you a personal example. Very personal, kind of embarrassing, but a Dil Khol Ke example. So when I was growing up, I grew up in Los Angeles, and I did not like Los Angeles at all. I very much wanted to go back east to go to university. I was a very good student. I applied to all of the Ivy League universities back east. My heart was set on a university called Brown. I loved the people, I loved the ethos, I loved what it stood for, I loved everything. More than Harvard or Yale or Princeton, I wanted to go to Brown. So I applied something that they call early admission. You apply early, they let you know early. I applied early admission to Brown, and I got in. I then withdrew my applications from every other university because I knew I'm going to go to Brown over any of the other Ivy League schools. So why would I take a place from somebody else? I withdraw my applications. However, my parents, my mom particularly, really wanted me to stay back in California. I did not want to stay in California under any circumstances. I was so excited to go to Brown. But she said, do me a favor. She said, just don't withdraw your application from Stanford. Let it be there. This was in December of my last year of high school. She said, you'll find out anyway in March, April from Stanford, then you can decide. But at least don't withdraw it. Keep the application in. I said, okay. Now, I was dating a boy at that time who was 1 year older than I was. We had started dating when I was in 11th grade and he was in 12th grade. When I started my 12th grade, he went off to university in a place in Northern California, almost at the Oregon border. During my last year of high school, the relationship became very serious. You know, when you're very young, you're 16, 17, you feel like someone is your soulmate and, you know, that you're going to be together forever. So that's what I thought. The idea at that point, by February, March of my last year of high school, the idea that he was going to be in California and I was going to be in Rhode Island on the exact other side of the country, it was terrifying. Like there was no way I was going to be able to handle that decision. So fortunately, I got accepted at Stanford, and I chose Stanford. Now, why did I choose it? Only because my boyfriend was going to college in California. Now, you ask any wise person whether that is a good reason to make a decision or a bad reason to make a decision, and everyone is going to say that is a ridiculous reason to make a decision, especially when you're that age. Making a decision at 17 based on where your boyfriend is going to university is crazy. Very, very bad way of making a decision. However, as it turned out, I was able to make Stanford a good decision. Even though I made the decision for the wrong reason, there I was in an environment, in a situation. As it turns out, he and I broke up by my second year of college. But there I was. And I was able to turn that decision that had not been the right decision in the beginning into a decision that actually worked very well for me. So that's what I mean, is when we make decisions, sometimes we make a decision that maybe wasn't the right decision, because maybe we make it for not such a good reason. Ego gets in, desire gets in, fear gets in, some other factor gets in, and we make a decision. But then we can turn it into something that actually really, really works for us. That's the key, is you're going to have decisions to make in your life. There will be times that you don't know what's the right decision. This is where you get guidance, advice from your parents, from elders, from mentors. And when you turn within, so one of the really powerful ways to make decisions that I always really like is if you've got two choices. Picture yourself 5 years from now, 10 years from now, after having made option number 1 as your decision. So, Paris or Delhi. Okay, don't think about yourself today. Think about yourself 5 years from now, 10 years from now, living in Paris, what your life is like. Or picture yourself 5 years or 10 years from now, living in Delhi or in Indore or wherever people are from. And you see, how does it feel? Not in the excitement, romance, not that, because that fizzles very quickly. But how does it feel in my body? Do I feel relaxed in my body? Do I feel expansive in my body? Or do I feel a tightness in my stomach, in my back, in my neck, in my head? Because that tightness comes when we're probably not making the right decision. So just feel in, how is it going to feel 5 years from now, 10 years from now? See what feels right. Now, the only important caveat with that is sometimes fear can make our stomach contract. And so sometimes picturing yourself doing something that's a really big risk and really takes a lot of courage and is a more difficult decision can make you feel like you've got those butterflies in your tummy. But that does not mean it's a wrong decision. It means do it anyway. Learn how to breathe, do some pranayama, do some meditation, but make the decision anyway. So this is where your meditation practice becomes really helpful. Because when you meditate, you understand this is the voice of fear, or this is really my inner voice. And slowly, slowly you'll learn. And remember, most decisions are changeable. You make a bad decision, or one you don't like, you want to change it, go ahead, change it. You decide to watch some movie and 10 minutes in, you realize, oh, this is awful. Well, there's no rule that says you have to watch all 3 hours of it. You go to a restaurant, you don't like the food, there's no rule that says you have to eat it all. Go home, make something else. So a lot of decisions you can change. You moved to Paris, you didn't like it. Well, give it some time. Don't run away immediately. But after some time, if it doesn't feel right, you can change. But the most important thing is don't be paralyzed. Don't freeze and not make any choices in your life because you're not sure which decision to make. Just choose one and then move on. Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah, other questions? Any other questions? आपको? हाँ, आइए माता जी. Come, you can come too. हाँ. अच्छा माता जी यहीं बैठिएगा 2 मिनट के लिए. वो प्रश्न पूछेंगे फिर आप पूछेंगे. क्या?
धन्यवाद. Namaste.
Namaste.
So my question for you is something that I think you might understand.
Just one sec. भैया आपके लिए कुर्सी यहाँ रख लीजिएगा क्योंकि वो इसके बाद फिर प्रश्न पूछेंगे है ना.
So I'm well aware that the key to happiness is having positive emotions towards everyone around you and feeling that nobody's different from you. And as you were saying in the prayer before that, you should not separate yourself from others, and I completely understand why that's how we should live.
Yeah.
But when I try to feel positive about others, sometimes I find that to be difficult. For example, over small things. For example, if I'm walking on the road and I see someone littering on the road, or if I'm like in the metro and I see somebody pushing others or like not following a queue, which is quite common in our country, unfortunately.
Yes.
And lately I was in UK for my masters. So after coming back, I feel even worse about it because it's quite the opposite over there. And everybody's quite mindful about others. But here, somehow, on that level, it's not there.
Yeah.
So it's very hard for me to feel positive when I see all that around me every day when I step outside the house. and I can't help but feel those negative emotions and anger and frustration, and powerless because I can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And even if I want to do something about it, I don't know how to, because I feel like if I do point that problem out in somebody, they will just get defensive.
Yeah.
And it will just ruin it further.
Yeah.
So how do I approach that situation?
Beautiful. Beautiful. So you can approach it on 2 levels. The first level, बस 2 मिनट माता जी, फिर मैं उनको आंसर दूंगी, फिर आप प्रश्न पूछेंगे. अब बैठिएगा आराम से, 2 मिनट. You can approach it on 2 levels. The first is not to let yourself get angry, but just to notice it. Just to notice it. This is the practice of mindfulness, practice of awareness. Ah, it's raining. Ah, it's sunny. Ah, it's hot. Ah, it's cold. Ah, this food is really good. Ah, this food is awful. And you just slowly with your life, with everything in your life, you just start to notice things rather than letting yourself get worked up about them. Ah, there's a flower. Ah, there's a monkey plucking the flower. Ah, there's this type of person, there's this type of person. Ah, there, that person is waiting in line. Ah, there's somebody who doesn't know how to wait in line. Ah, there's somebody in other people's space. Ah, here's somebody not respecting other people's space. And you just develop the ability to notice everyone in the same way that you notice different weathers, different times of day. Ah, it's night. Ah, it's day. Ah, it's dark. Ah, it's light. Ah, this person is very loving. Oh, this person is very mean. And you just start noticing them without allowing your inner mental peace to be changed by either of them. You just notice them. Picture that the world is simply a flower garden. And you're going around and you're just noticing the different types of flowers. Ah, these are roses, these are jasmine, these are sunflowers, these have a fragrance, these don't have a fragrance. These have thorns, these don't have thorns. Enable you to come back into this country and to notice the things that are different and disturbing without letting it really upset you. So that's piece number 1. Piece number 2 is doing whatever you can to bring about positive change. Now, you may not necessarily be able to bring about the type of change that all Indians everywhere are going to learn how to stand in line. You know, the situation also that you have to just realize from a purely sort of psychological, geographical, demographic situation is when you've got 1.3 billion people and you've got the type of crowds that India has, there's an almost survival instinct in us that kicks in where you realize if I actually stand in this line, I'm never going to get to the front. If I actually stand in this line, I'm going to miss my flight. My entire day is going to go. And it's interesting because sometimes I've noticed it going the other way. I was recently flying through Zurich airport. I was going to London, and I only had a 30-minute layover. But my incoming flight was a little bit late, so I literally ended up with 21 minutes to get from an arriving flight to the departure time of the next flight. And I thought, there's no chance I'm going to miss my flight. But I went. I get to security, and there's this huge... And I say to somebody who works there, my flight is boarding, it's closing in 5 minutes. Is there any possible way you can get me to the front of the line so that I don't have to spend the next, 25 minutes in security? And he says, no, ma'am. He says, sorry. He says, everybody has short connections and no. He said, but the line is moving pretty quickly, don't worry. And it was so interesting because I had a moment of thinking, oh God, I wish this were India. Because in India, of course, they would say, ha, bilkul, bilkul, ay, and they would make way. If you've got a flight departing, they'll make way. So it's just different ways. Now, obviously, for societies to function, the way that you've noticed in England and Europe and most of the West, it's obviously much more in alignment with peaceful and productive and efficient and effective and equal societies. Absolutely. But then you come back to India and you understand, because of the population, because of the way things happen, there's this instinct in people that is this kind of survival thing of like, I got to get to the front, otherwise it's never going to happen. Doesn't mean that you do it also. Doesn't mean that you don't try to change it as much as you can, but at least you don't get angry over it. You understand. You understand. This is just, it's the way they've been raised. They've never seen anything different. They've never experienced anything different. It's okay. These are people waiting nicely in line. Be able to. Very nicely, very politely. Excuse me, sir, these people were here. Why don't you wait your turn? People will probably thank you. They'll probably really thank you for that. And wherever you see someone being not respectful, intervene. But intervene respectfully. Bhai Sabji, could you please, I notice, usme bhi jeev hai. She also has feelings. He also has feelings. And again, you may end up getting bawled out by someone, but that's okay. You've done your best. But otherwise, on other levels, what I would say is find ways that you can actually give back and contribute to society here in a way that's probably going to have a bigger ripple impact and probably be able to actually positively affect more people. And there's so many ways. So find other ways to give back in society. And the rest, as it is, you notice it, you recognize it, you develop a bit of a sense of humor, ki haan, aise chalta hai yahan. You don't do it. And you just keep gently suggesting to people that there might actually be a better way. I've said to people many times, when I see people do that, many times I've said very politely, excuse me, sir, there's actually a line. See, if you notice all these people, it's actually a line. You can do it very politely. And again, not everybody's going to respond nicely, but every time I've done it, people actually get embarrassed and they say, oh, sorry, and they get in the line. Because they know ki sabke samne unki besti ho raha hai. So it's not that they're doing it because I've asked them. It's that they're doing it because if they don't, they're getting embarrassed in front of everybody. So you be polite, you be nice. And dire, slowly, things are changing. Have faith. Last question. Yes, Mataji. तो ये माइक जो है, हाँ, अपने पास लेके आइएगा. Perfect. इसमें बोलिएगा, है ना, माइक में.
What is your name? आपका नाम क्या है?
मेरा नाम साध्वी भगवती सरस्वती.
Yes. What is your country?
My country, भारत. भारत तो मेरे देश है. अमेरिका में तो जन्म लिया, शरीर तो अमेरिका में मैन्युफैक्चर्ड हुआ, लेकिन देश तो भारत.
आप यहाँ पर कब आए थे?
मैं आई थी 96 में, 28 वर्ष पूर्व. मैं 25 साल की थी उसी समय. अगर बाई चांस अगली क्वेश्चन है उम्र क्या है? 53.
बस इतना ही पूछना है.
Beautiful, beautiful. Have a beautiful rest of your evenings, everyone. A beautiful morning and day to our family joining from online. And so you all. And for those whose questions we didn't have time to take tonight, we will start with your questions tomorrow. कल आपके क्वेश्चन से शुरू करेंगे. कल आपके साथ शुरू करेंगे. अब थोड़ा सा आगे बढ़िएगा, फिर तुरंत देख लेंगे. Have a beautiful, beautiful evening and so much love to you.